Hey everyone, welcome back to another video. This is part 2 of working through the lock machine on Hack the Box. Formerly it was on VulnLab, but VulnLab was recently acquired by Hack the Box. Now this is part 2, so if you missed part 1, I recommend watching part 1 first, otherwise you may feel a little bit lost. Either way, I'm super excited to have you here, and you're going to learn a lot in the process. You might also notice that there is chat right here above my head or to the side of me. I actually make these while I'm live streaming. So if you do not subscribe to me on YouTube, you should. It's what all the cool people do. And you should hit the little bell notification thingy so that you're notified the next time I stream. I live stream all the time, and then you can be part of the live studio audience. Hey, real quick, one of the best ways you can support me is by enrolling in one of my courses. I have everything from a beginner level introduction to hacking methodology to a course for red teamers and pen testers doing phishing and social engineering engagements. All of my content comes from my day-to-day work as a pen tester and red teamer in the field, and I also offer a lifetime refund guarantee. If you enroll in my course now and let's say 3 years from now you realize it wasn't worth it, send me a message. I will refund whatever you paid for the content. That's how much I believe that these courses will help you in your career. They're all incredibly affordable. Links are in the description. Enjoy the rest of this video. All that being said, let's go ahead and dive in. Now, picking up where we left off, I rebooted the machine. It is the next day, but remember, we found a public repo being exposed on a Gitea instance on port 3000. So we're just going to pick up right where we left off. I'm not sure if this will load again, and hopefully it does. Maybe not, since I have a new network. I think I might have to reopen that. We'll try to reopen it in Kaido. Hopefully it refreshes the DNS, and we'll do http lock.vl on port 3000. And there we go. We are right back to where we left off. And if we jump over to our notes, remember we did dir search and we found explore repos. And we found a repo, a public repo with some potentially interesting information. So here we have Ellen Freeman dev scripts, and if you look over at our notes, we already have just from that some username enumeration. So if we were doing this as an internal pen test, as an attacker, we know right away we have at least one user named Ellen Freeman. We could use this information for some password spraying. Maybe we could try to get access to her or his account. And we also have some public scripts called dev scripts. So that's where we ended the previous part. And that's where we're going to pick things up. And just a reminder, I think, solve this machine a year ago, but I don't remember what it was. So I don't know what we're going to expect. This may even be a rabbit hole, but what I like to show you in these videos is the full process, my full methodology, my thought process, the rabbit holes I fall into, and all of those fun things. But let's go ahead and click into dev scripts and see what is going on here. So we have repos.py. If it would load, there we go. So what are we doing here? So we're importing some standard Python libraries for working with a web request. We're making a function for the domain, and we're saying, hey, if it doesn't start with HTTP or HTTPS, go ahead and add that to the domain. So it must accept the domain, as you can see, for the function. We're getting repos, and we're passing it an authorization token. I think this would be like for Git itself, an authorization token to pull down the repos and get the personal access. So this is what would be interesting. If we can get this personal access token, then we might be able to compromise the Gitea instance. I'll tell you guys real pen test story, which this honestly sounds like a CTF when I tell it to you, but I was on an external pen test. An external pen test is just when the client gives you a list of IPs or domains that are in scope, and I was running dir search on them just like I did for the CTF, and I don't know how they misconfigured it this badly, but there was a directory, I don't remember what it was, but the directory had one of the developers' GitHub access token just in clear text exposed to the internet. I pulled down their access token. I connected to their GitHub with the developer's access token. It was actually active and valid and had full write access to all of their private internal repos. I downloaded all their internal repos and source code, and I was like, oh shoot, this is a big deal. So I did an early disclosure. I was like, hey, you might want to rotate this token and make sure nobody else got their hands on this token because I just managed to stumble across it. So you do see stuff like this in the real world. That honestly, if I saw that on a CTF, I would say this isn't realistic. Like, what is the machine creator doing? But every once in a while, real world scenarios are very CTF-y, and you would be surprised what you come across. Anyways, I don't know if that's the case here, but we do see a Gitea access token being passed, but it's coming from an environment variable, so we can't just grab it from here, I don't think. We can just explore this. We'll see if there's any issues open. There's not. None of these would probably be interesting. Releases, wiki, activity, nothing has been committed. Go back to our code itself. We can check for commits. Can I compare? No, okay, I don't want to compare. I want to see if there's any commits that might have anything sensitive. I'm not seeing how to deal with Gitea. Oh, history. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, so let me just show you what we just did, because that's a common thing I do. Once again, even on internal pen tests, I've had multiple times where I get access to something like a Gitea instance or an internal Git. And if there's no sensitive creds being passed in the script itself, it's always worth checking the commit history. Maybe there was a previous commit where they committed something sensitive, and that's what I was checking there. And here in Gitea, we can go up here and see history. When we do that, you can see that we have 2 commits from Ellen Freeman. The first one was updating repos.py, or the second one rather, and that's the file that we were looking at, but the first one is add repos.py. All right, one change file with 40 additions. So this is when they first created it, and look at that. Would you just look at it? Almost identical to what I was talking about before, but very real world. This is not CTF-y. This is something I see in the real world if I get access on an internal pen test to like a Git instance. But you can see it is passing the user's personal access token for Gitea. And then it says store this as an environment instead at some point, which they do eventually do. But let's go ahead and grab a screenshot of that for either our pen test or our note. So we'll just start maybe up here. Now, the way you would do this on an actual pen test is you wouldn't want to expose the access token in your report. So you would take a screenshot like this. You would highlight it saying like, this is what it is, but then you would censor it. So I would take maybe this last half and I would censor it like that so that it's not exposed on the report. But we aren't writing a report. We are just writing a walkthrough for a CTF. So we don't have to do that. Anyways, we'll do like an H3 and we'll say discovering access token. Exactly, Kenny. Make that a little bit smaller. We'll drop it over to the left side. And I want to make a code block and grab this. Can you remove history from Git where something like this happens, or is the only option update? You can remove it. There's ways to censor it. It depends on what you're using internally, but yes. So we have the personal access token. Here's what I don't know, though. I don't know the syntax to connect with that. So we could just look at some documentation. I mean, we could always ask ChatGPT, which is the fast way, but I think you learn better if you dig into it a little bit. So get access token command line. Look, other people were asking it. Well, that's the... You can't escape the AI answers. We'll see if this is actually helpful. I want to see, can I just use it on the CLI? I'm pretty sure you can. I just don't remember the syntax. Blah, blah, blah. Token authentication, git clone. Okay, we can just cache it like a password. That would be... So I think what you can do, You guys let me know if you know the syntax without Googling it. But I think you can pass it as an actual header as well. Okay, so creating the token. To create your own token template. Okay. Using a personal blah blah. Once you have a personal access token, you can enter it instead of your password in performing get operations. For example, the cloner repo on the command line, you would enter the following: get clone command. You would then be prompted to enter your username and password. When prompted for your password, enter your personal access token instead of your password. Okay. Let's go ahead and give that a shot. Speaking of ChatGPT, are there any other AI tools you use in pen testing? No, I mean, mainly GPT and Gemini, but mainly just to remember syntax, just to speed up this process. But when I do CTFs like this, I try to look at the documentation and learn that way because it sticks better. But when I found that access token exposed in that pen test, I just asked GPT, what's the syntax for me to authenticate with this? Obviously, I didn't pass the access token to GPT, but just to get the syntax. But I don't want to be overly reliant on that, especially when streaming. So let's go ahead and clone it, and then we'll go ahead and use Ellen's access token. So I think what we can do, can we see, I mean, we could clone dev scripts, but is there, I don't know that would do what that would do for us. You can use a token at IP. But see, if I just don't see how useful this will be. We have dev scripts, but what we want to know is, does Ellen have other repos that we might be able to get access to? Because just cloning dev scripts is not going to do anything for us because we already see it. Like, and modifying isn't going to do anything. Gitea, I believe, does have an API. Okay, API tokens, I think. Let's try to use this as an authorization header token and see if we can enumerate with the API first. Okay, let's just see. I don't know, what's notification? Let's use notification threads. Let's go ahead and try it out. Oh no, let's not try it out. I just want something to test access. I want to see maybe a user. Get the authenticated user. Unauthorized. So that did not work. Token is required. So we have authorization there. How do we pass this token properly? So this is a depreciated for removal. Well, just depreciated, but we might be able to use it. I guess let's try the access token first. And if you guys have any guesses, feel free to shout them out. Let's just try this and let's see if we can run it now. Oh, would you look at that? We have access right there, and we can replicate it in our terminal by just copying the curl command. And we can pass it over to JQ, which I don't have installed. All right, I'm not going to update my Kali Linux thing right now, so we're just going to work with it. Anyways, we can see when we run this command, we are authenticated as Ellen Freeman via the Gitea API. So let's just grab this and drop it in our notes so we know the syntax. digging into Gitea via the API. I'll just do a code block and drop that information in there. What I'm curious about is, can we use the API to figure out if there's other repos that maybe aren't public? Migrate search for repository. Does this accept parameters? I just want to be like, give me all repos. Okay, let's try to search. Let's just see if the search one works, I suppose. I'm just going to run it with nothing. Okay, that actually does work. Sweet. So if we run this command, all right, that looks beautiful. Now, if you want to fix that, if you pass it over to JQ, which parses JSON objects, which is what I was trying to do before, but I'd have to upgrade my Kali instance, and we're not going to wait for it to do that. But if you just pipe it to JQ, it will make it look a lot nicer. But I just want the syntax here so we can add it to our notes. So we'll drop over to our notes, and we'll say listing the repos for Ellen, I think is her name. And we'll drop that in. And then when we look at this here, let me zoom in so you guys can see this a little bit better. Maybe. All right, that looks a little bit better. When we list out Ellen, we have her dev scripts, of course. What do we have going on? That's her ID. Okay, here's a different repo for a website. Which might be interesting. Okay, let's grab a screenshot of that. We'll show this clone URL. We'll try to clone that, and then we'll see if we can use the access token like on the command line. Because that is a repo that isn't in that public repo one. So potentially, this repo called website, maybe there's more sensitive credentials or something along those lines that we're able to steal down and enumerate. So I'm going to grab this clone URL. I'm going to get clone. But instead of localhost, we have to change this to lock.vl. And we're going to do ellen.freeman. And our password for Ellen is, of course, going to be that access token, if I understood the documentation correctly. Boom. All right, we did successfully clone it. I'll just add that to our notes as well. And you see me taking these notes, guys. If you're studying for an exam like the OSCP, the PMPT, every time you solve a machine, you want to make sure you're taking good notes. You can refer back to your notes, and then you can be like, hey, I saw Gitea once when I was doing the CTF. Let me pull up my notes and see what I all did with that Gitea instance. But we'll say cloning the private repo. Password is the personal token from above. So we have that. We have cloned that repo. And now, oh, I did it in the wrong spot. Oh, well. We'll CD over to website. And we have... Actually, I believe that's the main website. Remember yesterday when we were enumerating port 80? We saw this changelog.txt. Added first website version. And if we go to .vl changelog.txt, added first website version. So this is actually like that main website, I think. Scroll down in our notes. It looks like this is actually the main website on port 80. Because of that changelog.txt, we know that. Can I don't know if that will actually update. No, because I'd have to authenticate with her on the command line. Let me look over at time. We're at 20 minutes here. We'll keep digging into it. First thing I want to do is let's go back over to Hack the Box, lock here, and then we'll do this all in lock. But what we want to do is authenticate from the command line, so then we can actually push changes and such to it. Let's git clone again. And then we're going to try to authenticate. Ellen.Freeman. Password for Ellen. I'm blind. I scrolled right by it. Wait, where's it at? Right here. I am blind. All right, see the website. Geez, I don't even have I don't have Visual Studio Code installed. Let's get this installed as well. Make it a little bit easier to work with. Do. All right, we could just do it on the command line too. We'll let that take some time to install. I think if we echo smarter hacks all the things into changelog.txt, and then if we do git add that, and then we can add a commit message. Please subscribe. All right, git config global user.email. Oh, I meant to do that for the username. I don't know if I'm doing this right, guys. My Git skills aren't great. Grab our personal access token. Did I actually do that right? Let's check. Okay, maybe that just takes a while to update. I have no idea. And I did do it correct. All right, let's copy all this syntax on us proving that we have actually write access. Hey, peace out, Zephyr. But proving that we have write access to the directory. So I'll scroll through and we'll do like a H3. Write access to the website itself. And we have our POC pasted in there. We'll change this. Oh, it's already bash. All right, well, that's fine. It just looks a little bit sloppy there. But here is what we have confirmed. Let me just recap if you felt a little bit lost there. So in this part, we enumerated that public repo that we found. When we were looking at that public repo, we looked at the history of any commits. And the first commit that Ellen Freeman made is she or he pushed their personal access token to the repo. Well, with the personal access token, we then used the Gitea API, and we knew that that was there from dir search. When we did the dir search command, we saw that on the terminal, which is why it's so important to take notes when you're doing these things. Actually, I believe it was right here. API Swagger. So we knew there was an API. Once we knew that there was an API, we were able to use that to enumerate first, do we actually have access as Ellen Freeman? And that's what we did with this first curl command. Do we have access? And we do. She's not an admin, but we do have access as Ellen Freeman. Then we listed the repos for Ellen Freeman. We just did a blank search in all the repos, and we found another repo called website. We get cloned and we use Ellen Freeman for the username and that personal access token for the password, and we were able to clone the website. It actually looked like it was the main website being hosted on port 80, because once again, nodes are important, and hopefully you remember that from part 1. And then we wanted to see, do we actually have write access to the website itself? And you can see that we do. We were able to overwrite the changelog.txt with hack smarter hacks all the things. We did your standard git stuff, so git add, git commit. Then I realized I had to authenticate, so we just typed in Ellen Freeman there. And then when we committed it, it prompted us for the username and password again. We did Ellen for the username, password, we did that personal access token, and then we have the POC right there that we can actually write to the public website. So I want to give you a challenge before we dive into part 3. I have given you all the tools that you need to get a reverse shell on this machine. But before I just show you how to do it, I want you to try it on your own. Now, I'll give you a few hints. If we scroll up to the top here, remember, we are attacking the web server on port 80. And I want you to keep in mind, and we talked about this in the enumeration yesterday in that first stream, that first part, that this is a Microsoft IIS web server. So here's the information you have. You are able to write to a web server. The web server is a Microsoft IIS web server. What could you write in order to give yourself RCE or remote code execution? I want you to try it on your own, give it a shot, and then when you're done, join me in the next part, and we will hopefully pop a shell and continue our hacking. But hey, thank you so much for watching. I will catch you in the next one.